Hey guys, this is Growth Beast, co-founder of Growth Stories, the first on-chain marketing newsletter in the space, and welcome to another edition of our marketing minicast. Today we've got Lucas Campbell, co-founder of Pods.Media, better known as Pods, and this is the go-to place to mint and listen to your favorite podcast. So our episode is now on Pods. Be sure to mint it to show your support. Lucas, welcome aboard.
Thank you so much, Alex. Great to be here.
Lucas, how did you start the Pods journey? In December last year, I was just thinking there's no good distribution platform and with a great UI to listen to and also mint podcasts on chain.
Yeah, so this journey really started a few years ago. So as a bit of background, I was an early employee at Bankless. I worked there for about 3 years or so, and the story of Pods really got started when I was kind of working there and just looking around at all of the media companies, not just Bankless, but everyone, kind of running just this normal Web 2 playbook for releasing media online, right? And one of the things that annoyed me is like, look, all these people are talking all day, every day about how amazing this technology is, how, it's going to reinvent every facet of our being, it's going to touch every industry. And no one's looking inwards about how this actually affects media. So I went down this rabbit hole about probably in November 2021. So a few years ago of like, what does on-chain media look like? What does a Web3 media company look like? And how are they monetizing? How are they kind of sustaining themselves? How are they engaging with their audience on a new level? And one of the more foundational things, I think that there's a ton of opportunity in on-chain media as a whole, but one of the more foundational things is just publishing all of that media on chain, right? Naturally, make it ownable by the community, monetize directly from the community, no advertisements needed, and you get to kind of build status and a social graph with the individuals behind your fan base. So something that doesn't really exist in Web 2 is like you don't get micro level data on the individuals behind your podcast or your content as a whole. You're getting a lot of macro level data. You're getting, 100,000 views. Half of them were from the US, the other half were from different parts of the world. But you don't know whose life was changed by that piece of content, or who, who watched it 5 times or, really resonated with that content. So what on-chain media does is allows the individual to express their affinity for you as a creator or even that specific piece of content. So if it has their, favorite guest like Vitalik or something, maybe they really love Vitalik and everything that he's done for the industry and want to support the creator for, showcasing Vitalik and all that kind of stuff. So there's a huge opportunity here, but that is the TLDR on the Pods journey was just looking at normal media companies and being like, look, how does this technology that we love so much impact and affect and change and evolve what media means?
What has growth looked like for Pods since launch?
So we're coming up on a year now. Growth to date has been, it has honestly exceeded my expectations. We're just about to cross 70 podcasts on chain, over 300,000 mints, over across, I think over 100,000 unique collectors. And we have, I think we're approaching 1,000 episodes minted on chain that have been monetized. I think we're over 1,000 that haven't gotten mints, but we're quickly building a large and deep archive of the best crypto media in the game.
300,000 is no easy feat, actually. I think in 1 year, that's way better than you definitely expect. And so for creators that kind of, want to transition to Pods or are have heard of the platform, maybe they're thinking about it, how can they best leverage the Pods platform?
Creators that are interested right now, we are on a private beta on a wait list or a whitelist. So you do have to apply via our creator form at the bottom. But you can go through that submission process. We review those probably on a weekly basis. If you're really keen, I recommend reaching out to us on Twitter or Pods, or on Twitter or Warpcast, at Pods on Warpcast, at Pods.Media on Twitter. And that kind of bumps your application if we get some more some enthusiasm was the word I was looking for. Yeah. And then what that process looks like from there is really straightforward. We kind of just whitelist an ETH address that you want to publish on. We get you some ETH on base, and then you just kind of need all your normal podcast assets. So, podcast logo, cover image, or title, description, basic stuff like that. And we have some tooling available to make it really easy if you already have a podcast online on Spotify and whatnot, we have some amazing tooling that makes this onboarding process super seamless and available to get done in a few clicks.
It was super easy for me. The onboarding, I think it took the max 5 to 10 minutes. So yeah. Moving into the platform itself, how it grew, what type of podcast do you think does better? You've seen in terms of format do well. We're
Mhm.
talking shorts, short form like this one. 30 to an hour. I'm not sure how to classify that, and then 1 hour plus, which is more long form.
We've experimented with a couple things. So, obviously most people end up releasing long form podcasts on the platform. So, around an hour long is typically the standard podcast that we have on the platform. But we have seen some creators, use shorter form content like you with growth stories. Los Fomos is another one that comes to mind, which is like a WordCast native one. Eat Daily does like 3-minute daily segments on what's going on in the Ethereum ecosystem. So we definitely have a wide range of content. I think the content and what performs best, I think, is a part of it. I think it really has been coming down to which creators are just like most active on chain and can kind of leverage this on chain economy to drive engagement to their content, right? So it's less about the format and it's more about how these creators can tap into this massive design space of on chain media to drive more engagement for their content. And that is through mints and that is through listens. So yeah, we have seen some crypto native creators do really well, kind of leveraging interesting primitives like Boost and Layer 3 and stuff like that, which has seen a lot of success and a lot more distribution, right? So it's figuring out how you can leverage this on-chain permissionless ecosystem to maximize the distribution of your content on-chain. So it's less about the format and more about the strategy that you're using after you publish that content.
Yeah, in fact, I've been working hard to kind of reverse engineer virality all over the place. Trying to build different like A/B testing, top of funnels, and different combinations. Whether it's partnerships, whether it's like different places where to set up the podcast. So definitely going to be like investing a lot in the next 6 months in terms of driving some of that by virality with like micro 100 minutes at least, and then fortunately going to 1,000 and more. You've talked a little bit about distribution campaigns. What are the best campaigns that you've seen that kickstarted organic mints, right? Because inorganic is probably first stage to just kickstart all of the rest, ideally.
Yeah, I think Warpcast and Lens have been fantastic ways to share your content, especially if there's something topic specific and they have like a big channel on Warpcast or something. So if you're interviewing, the founder, Jesse Pollock of Base, posting that in the Base channel is really good distribution. And what happens with Pods is we've been worked hard to make sure that we integrate these social platforms, these on-chain social platforms in a way that you just post the Pods link and you kind of automatically get a frame on Warpcast or an open action on Lens that people can mint directly there and then go directly to the podcast, obviously, and listen. Warpcast, Lens, On-Chain Social has been a massive distribution channel for Pods and on-chain media as a whole. And then beyond that, one that I like that's really emphasizes the organic stuff is Daylight. So it's kind of in the same vein of going to the Warpcast channel, of the founder that you're interviewing, but they're able to almost directly email, anyone that follows Jesse Pollock on Warpcast. These send out an email to them. So they're really good at segmenting the target audience and who might be most interested in that piece of content. And they've done a really good job. Like Kyle and that whole team are killer. So yeah, that would be one of my favorite, more organic ways. And it's just like, again, it's just coming down to how do you get this content in front of the right people, right? And more times than not, if you do that in the on-chain world, they're down to mint and they're down to support that content on a direct level.
I actually didn't know about Daylight. I knew a lot about Boost and Layer 3 from Coop, and then from Adam through their podcast and their journey on chain. But yeah, this is definitely new alpha right here. Um, Digressing a little bit, do you have a podcast yourself? Like, if you do, what's the beauty behind having one for the audience and aspiring creators to understand?
Yeah, so we do have a podcast called the Podscast. I need to be a little bit more diligent about posting on a more frequent basis, but we actually just recorded an awesome episode yesterday or 2 days ago with Johnny and Ted from Johnny Mac from Hypersub, and Ted as a brand builder, personal brand on Farcaster, and they're also the hosts of Many Such Cases, which is a podcast on Pods. One of the beautiful things about having the podcast, is we get to dog food our own product, and we really get to understand and get ourselves in the shoes of a creator that's using the platform on a weekly basis, right? Understanding, some of the frictions of just publishing, right? And being able to identify bugs, to tooling, to actually using some of these primitives that we're talking about that are seeing success, like Boost and Layer 3, testing them out for ourselves, figuring out what works, helping us direct like our product roadmap effectively, by just being in that shoe and the shoes of the creator and having that perspective. And then on top of that, we also get to just talk about on-chain media, and we get to help propagate, the meme and educate people. So, I think I really try and tailor the podcast for all of the creators on Pods that are interested in learning about on-chain media, how to better distribute your podcast, how to reward your collectors. Some of the yesterday's episode really went into the counter arguments against, Adam's playbook and incentivizing mints for speculation and all that kind of stuff. So it was a really good episode that challenged a lot of my thinking. But we also came to a really healthy conclusion on like how to leverage this stuff in a really good way and powerful way.
I've actually collaborated with Justin from Safari on that episode to kind of issue about 220 rewards, just basically boosted mints, and just kind of gauge how that worked in terms of the threshold, the reward, and how people's response has been. Pods is cool because it has a trending tab and a new tab. And then for the new tab, it's cool. You can just publish maybe like every day, and you're probably going to be there, show up there twice. When does a podcast start trending in the top 10?
Yeah, it's really a very simple metric of just the top minted podcasts over the past 2 weeks. So any podcast that was published within 2 weeks, it just sorts them by number of mints. And then obviously after the 2 week window, it kind of falls off. So that's how our trending works. And again, like as you kind of build mints, that trending page or that trending area kind of sees more activity than other parts of the platform. So you kind of get, it's like a flywheel effect, right? Of like, you kind of get to the trending, you get more mints, that kind of boosts the trending piece. And then on top of that, we also just have like a featured carousel. So we kind of curate 5 episodes, usually on a weekly basis, of like some of our favorite episodes that we think is valuable for the community to listen to and collect and all that kind of stuff. So that's usually how our homepage changes in terms of the content that lives on it.
Yeah, we were featured there. Thank you,
Let's
guys.
go.
Really appreciate it. Where are you thinking of taking Pods next? What's the vision? Any alpha on new features?
We have a big kind of just framework of trying to figure out to answer like this why collect, and maybe even more specifically of like how do we get collectors paid, and maybe it's not financially, but it's with status, with access, with all sorts of perks and benefits. How do we make collecting this stuff really compelling for the end user and for prospective fans and for anyone else that wants to come in and listen to this stuff and collect it? So answering that why collect is definitely a big framework and just a goal for us over the next year. I think we did a really good job in the past 12 months of just getting podcasts on chain, right? And like that was the first case. Like, let's get the creators on chain. Let's get bootstrap a network of really compelling, really solid content, and then we can start kind of tapping into different levers in order to kind of drive more collects and more activity on the platform for the creators that are publishing.
One thing I've been thinking, because I also organize more marketing event, I was thinking instead of having some sort of tickets on Zora, why not have people mint the podcast and show that, hey, like kind of like a POAP, but actually, you benefit as a creator. You can also kind of see people finally interact with your content and have that proof of attendance, so to speak, proof of engagement more than anything. So I'd love to see something like that. If not, there's always a QR generator somewhere.
Yeah, I think having composable piece of media that you can do anything with, I think creates this really compelling and just infinite design space on what you can do, right? You can use them as tickets or access to your event. You can use them as almost coupons for your sponsors. So anyone that collects that episode that's sponsored by, whatever brand you have, maybe that episode is redeemable for a 20% discount on whatever that product is, or a free trial on that product. Maybe you want to use it so the community that's collecting can vote and influence your future content, right? Using Joke Race. Maybe you want to create a token gated chat only reserved for the top 100 people. Maybe you want to airdrop tokens or, exclusive NFTs that you kind of created that are not podcast related, but you want to reward these people that have been your supporters. So there's really a just endless design space. And I feel like a broken record because I've been on podcasts saying this, but I can't emphasize it enough. Like, we haven't even scratched the surface. This is just what my silly little brain has come up with. And we're starting to see creators really starting to build at the edges here of what's possible with on-chain media, and the primitive of having this on-chain permissionless composable piece of media with a fully public social graph of who's interacted with it.
As a last question, what's the best episode that you've ever listened to?
Ooh, on pods, on-chain, or just ever?
Well, let's do on-chain. Let's be faithful to the on-chain creator.
I really love the episode "How to Go Viral On-Chain" with Adam and Cooper. Very much ties into this conversation. But I think Adam and Cooper do a really phenomenal job of distilling the playbook of how they're seeing so much success on chain, not only with their podcast, but Coop also runs a music label, on-chain music label, and he's running the exact same playbook with the music, and it's working phenomenally. I think if you are interested in how on-chain media can go viral and how you can kind of bootstrap that virality, that is like the canonical episode to listen to on that front.
Yeah, and this is not sponsored. I can't wait to see where Pods goes in the next 6 to 12 months. Maybe we can have you back in 6 months, kind of see where the growth is, comparison, maybe hit 500,000 podcast episodes minted. So that would be really, really cool to see.
Let's go.
Thanks again. For everybody else, do subscribe to our newsletter. I've dropped the link in the description, and definitely mint this episode. We've got a lot of rewards. We're building a whole new ecosystem around growth stories. So stay tuned.
Love it. All right. Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, and stoked to see this on chain.